do you have a director in mind for this?
No, it's going to be co-directed by Baz Luhrmann and Michael Mann.
Jesus Christ.
And it will be fatal to everybody who watches it.
It will be The Ring.
Yeah.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2022, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Hello, and welcome.
I fucked it up already.
All right, let me get that clean. Hello, and welcome to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? I am one of your co-hosts, Dalton DeShane.
I am the other of your co-hosts, Dylan Roth.
And welcome back. We are now approximately 30% of the way through phase 2, I want to say. We've had 2 of our original movies. Let me explain what this podcast is in case this is your first episode. This is the podcast where it is kind of a difficult premise to explain. But basically, if you remember, back in 2017, Universal was going to create a shared universe of monster movies called The Dark Universe. It failed after The Mummy sucked. Wait, we have a lot of fans now that like The Mummy.
That's
so
true.
We should
And
be
also,
kind to it.
I think it's important to note that you have become
I am actually
fully
the
mummy pilled now.
I'm the most forgiving of the Mummy.
Yes,
I have the VR special edition 4K Blu-ray.
But Universal has secretly hired us to revamp the Dark Universe one movie at a time and come up with a pitch for an entire Avengers-scaled franchise.
So now we've done like 8 of them.
We have done 7 of our own movies.
7 original movies.
Right, because there's The Mummy, which
Yes.
we inherited, and then there's 7 of our own. And like I said, we are 2 movies into our phase 2, and there's going to be a total of 7 in phase 2.
But today, we're doing something a little different. Today, we are checking back in with the Universal execs and preparing sort of ourselves for the reality of when our Dark Universe gets actually made and put in theaters in front of you.
Yeah, because listen, we can do everything that we can to make the stories
We're just
as best
humble
we can.
writers.
Yeah, I mean, but once it gets out there in the world, it's going to have a massive impact on the entertainment. You could say that the power structure, or you could say
The
that
hierarchy-
the hierarchy of power in American cinema is going to change.
Yes, because so far we've had shared universes, right? But it's all been superhero movies. It's
Right.
just been superhero movie after superhero movie. Once the Dark Universe takes off, it's going to be all dark takes on classic literature characters.
And this is where we really run into our big danger of how we, based on the model of Universal horror classics in the beginning of late silent era, early talkie era, is that many of our characters are in the public domain.
We are dealing with a lot of public domain characters, which opens us up, unfortunately, to competition.
Direct competition.
There is literally nothing to stop anyone from coming out with another Frankenstein movie the year our Frankenstein movie comes out. And depending on how long Guillermo del Toro takes with this next one, that might actually happen. It'll be just like the 3 Pinocchios all over again.
Oh, no.
But our Frankenstein will not star Pauly Shore. I can almost guarantee that. I guess that's up to the Universal execs. But those Universal execs, just as they wanted to prepare us a month ago with fandom and catering to the fans on the internet, now they want to prepare us for that competition. And so they have hired a famed novelist.
Lying this early on the podcast.
Good Morning America select
That's right, because everything that we just said prior to that was 100% true.
Yes.
Yeah. We've begun the lying now.
Yeah,
with
now,
famed.
the lies start exactly now.
We actually have our guest is in the room with us today. That's how much Universal cares about this. They flew Calvin all the way from Queens to Brooklyn to be in the studio with us because
I took an Uber copter. It was very expensive. My landlord was not happy that we landed it on the roof.
But, it was the fastest way.
Yeah.
And the suits are picking up the bill, as Squirrel Nut Zippers once said.
Right? We all remember that.
Everyone remembers the
we all
Squirrel
remember
Nut
the
Zippers
lyrics
classic.
from the Squirrel Nut Zippers.
What, was I the only one that lived through the swing revival?
I think maybe yes is the thing.
Weren't they all killed in that one train accident?
Yeah, the day the music died, part 2.
This is what happens when we have a guest in the studio and we feel free to riff. This is going to be a 3-hour guest episode.
There are giant zoot suits everywhere on the tracks.
Suits covered in blood.
All right, so we hired famous novelist Calvin Kasulke.
Calvin Kasulke, author of Several People Are Typing, which is a wonderful book.
Hi, I'm Calvin Kasulke. I'm here to talk about the fucking League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes, so Calvin has been hired.
The most dangerous reboot of all.
Calvin has been hired by the studio to basically pitch us what our competition is going to look like once the Dark Universe launches. Because once this is a big success, we're going to have a certain unnamed studio who has the rights to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, who I'm sure will be hot on our heels to develop their own film franchise using a lot of similar characters
that are all in the public domain.
In fact, there's another podcast running alongside ours from the other studio pitching their League of Extraordinary Gentlemen universe.
That might exist. We should see if that's something that's happening.
Battle of the Bands podcast style. It's just 2 hours of crosstalk.
So, we wanted to talk a little bit. I actually met with Calvin just a couple weeks ago, and we watched the 2003 film adaptation. If you're not familiar with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, let me start from the beginning. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Alan Moore was born 600 years ago today.
Yes. And Alan Moore had a comic series. As the lone. Well, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say lone comic writer, but Calvin has actually written Batman. Calvin is a much more successful comic book writer than I am.
I have written exactly one Batman.
You have written one Batman
and one. I don't know if I can say that it's going to be.
Can you not say yet?
Legion of Bloom. It's going to be a Legion of Bloom. I don't know if I can say who it is. Actually, I didn't sign an NDA.
Legion
but whatever.
of Bloom, Legion of Doom, Dark Legion. You're already kind of nipping at our heels a little bit, but that's fine. Calvin, a successful comic book writer. I'm an unsuccessful comic book writer, but I feel bad because I can't remember who the artist on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was with Alan Moore. So I'm going to leave a blank space here to state their name later when I edit this.
Beep.
Kevin O'Neill. And that was the artist on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And it's basically a series that takes a lot of icons of classic British literature and kind of puts them on an Avengers-style team. This was adapted into a not very good movie in 2003 by this unnamed studio who I believe still owns the rights. And so now, with us rebooting all these monster movies, it would make sense that that studio is going to reboot their League adaptation. And so Calvin,
which is like a sort of, we should talk about the genre. I have not read the Alan Moore comic, I have to admit.
Hey, I have.
Yeah,
have you really?
Is it also like an action? Like it seems like it wants to be horror in some parts of the film.
It was a long time ago. It is, as you can imagine, like much more problematically horny than the movie.
It feels like one of those comics you read when you're like 13 and like all of it goes over your head because like it's so
that's exactly
dense.
what happened, so I don't remember it very well.
Except that it was problematically horny, which frankly the movie could have stood to
could have been much hornier.
Could have been hornier.
We also have to weigh this with a bit that there was I probably did not become comfortable with any level of horniness until I was like 20 years old.
I thought you were going to say like until you like right before the birth of your child.
I had a kid. So I realized that it was for procreation.
Yeah, I had sex once under protest. I did it for God.
So I'm glad you've read it because we're absolutely, especially with the number of British fans that we have now, people are going to be disappointed. They're going to see the title and think we're going to dive deep on the Alan Moore comics. And unfortunately, this is all going to be based on our watching of the
Stephen Norrington's 2003 adaptation. Yeah.
This is a movie podcast, not a comics podcast. Maybe in the future we will, or I will, or some of us will read the comics and we'll tackle this again.
I truly expected that at least one of us would have arrived prepared having read the comic book.
It's been a busy month. I've been writing a new Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah. I have a baby.
You have a baby.
I'm writing 2 books.
Yes,
right.
Calvin is a successful novelist, as we said, and also
no, you said
Legion of Bloom.
famous, which was a lie.
You've been on TV.
One time.
Okay, well, let's just the real takeaway here is that we're all very impressive people.
Yeah, we're all very impressive and very busy, and our hairlines are all doing great. This is an audio medium. I'm bald as hell. No, so we want to talk about the movie, and then we want to talk about the new movie. The new movie that will be happening hot on the heels of the Dark Universe, and I will say now, not to spoil the second half of the podcast, but I will be punishing myself the same way folks punished yourselves, which is to say it will be a direct sequel to the 2003 League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
We're keeping it canon.
Thank you for rising to the challenge of our show.
Dalton you guys were very generous in your terms in terms of like, sort of what this could be. And I'm delighted to say I took your kindness and I put it in the toilet.
So because this is really a podcast about movie fan fiction and movie reboots, this is going to be focused on the 2003 film. So let's talk about that movie a little bit. Now, Calvin, I understand you have a history with this film, maybe more so than Dylan and I. So tell us about the first time you saw The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I don't know if I can tell you about the first. I can tell you about like the first 25.
Right, the kind of grouping of it.
Yeah. So I guess there are two things about this movie. One, I probably watched it at least a dozen times when I was like, it came out in 2003, so I've been like 11, 12, 13
I feel
in
like
that
we
range.
all have a DVD at that age that it was like, this was just like, I came home after school and I just popped this DVD in again.
Yeah, you say that like there was a singular one. So for me, that was a lot of movies, but for it like a chunk, for like maybe, I don't know, probably like a month or something, this was me and my brother would just like, okay, cool, play that shit right back. I know we just watched it, start it again, DVD menu, baby. You can just hit play again,
DJ,
one click and you're back in it. Yeah. You can just run that right back.
You can scene select to your favorite Jekyll Hyde transformation.
We're just going to keep that on a loop.
Loop it.
One of us playing RuneScape, one of us just watching it, kind of trading back and forth. Yeah, it's the life. Like I said, that was a lot of movies. This was one of them, but I think because I was like in my late preteen, early teenage years, I think this is also the first movie I realized that wasn't good. Because when you're a kid...
sure. Every movie's the best thing you've ever seen.
Every movie, it's light, sound, color. It's great. And movies really only have two categories, good or scary, right? Or like maybe sad, right? Like I watched me and my brother watched The Fox and the Hound once and looked at my mom like, why would you bring this into our house, right? But otherwise, movies are pretty great. And I mean, at that point, I'd seen The Phantom Menace 600 or 700 times, and I still think that movie's pretty good.
See, mine was Attack of the Clones. That was like my DVD. I just watch Attack of the Clones over and over and over.
I frequently refer to Attack of the Clones as the worst movie I've seen the most number of times.
Yep.
Yeah, this might be it for me. So, which doesn't mean I don't like the movie. I think it's just the first movie I liked and watched a lot and was also like, I don't think this is strictly speaking cinema.
Which is why movies like this are important, is because they teach us how to think critically about art.
I think, a lot of the times, I don't know, you watching a movie that you think is kind of lumpy or flawed, you oftentimes have more to say about it and like more to think about than like, I don't know, I've seen Citizen Kane once and I was like, yeah, everything everybody says, 100% true. Fucking masterpiece. I don't have a lot of insights about how and why Citizen Kane is good. It's just like, oh yeah, movie's good as hell. End of thought. Like maybe certain moments or something you'll bring up again.
But anything you could think of to say is there's already a book about it. Right?
There's a whole field of study about it.
If anyone has ever written the book about 2003's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, it was the person who wrote like the art of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen book, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which there's some good art direction in this movie.
Actually, it has some high points.
There are some things that I like about it.
I'm not saying when I say I don't think it's strictly speaking good, I'm not also saying it's bad. It's fun. It's just also got some lumps in it.
Yeah, it's not. I will also set the bar as I did enjoy it more than 2017's The Mummy.
Yes, I recently watched when you guys streamed The Mummy. I watched it with you guys. So
I'm sorry, we didn't do anything of the kind.
No.
When
you're speaking of would be a federal crime.
When we invited you over to watch
to your private viewing,
yes, to the private viewing we held,
which was not broadcast in any medium.
That's right,
via Blu-ray locally.
I watched it with my good friends Dylan and Dalton.
Yes.
In the privacy of one of their homes, and it was an absolute dog shit experience.
I don't think anybody of the three of us who were present when we watched it hated it quite as much as you did.
I was yelling and yelling, and yes. I was walking around, I was like doing other things, and still had time to be mad. Like I was not because every time I would repay attention.
Okay, but to be fair, you also got very mad when we were watching The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, mostly for extremely specific historical reasons that I was half
Tom
keeping
Sawyer
up with.
Had seen a car for the first time, had to ask what it was, and then knew how to drive.
Yes.
Very well, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Stunt driving. He had to ask, what is that? And then he could drive.
Because he's an American,
he was
Calvin.
Mario Andretti.
We
That's
got
his
gasoline
superpower.
in our blood.
That's his superpower.
Yes.
For those that aren't familiar, Tom Sawyer, I believe, is one of the characters who was not in the comic.
Right.
They added him in because they needed a young, hot American heartthrob.
They wanted, for American audiences.
Yeah, for American audiences. So they just add Tom fucking Sawyer, who bears no character reference. He's a member of the Secret Service, I believe.
Yes,
So
he says
Secret Service,
which, by the way, did not exist.
did not exist in 1899.
Like they say Secret Service, I think they want to say like FBI or CIA, which fully did not exist.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the Secret Service as such existed, but in any case,
hang on. What about? Aren't they in the Secret Service in Wild Wild West, the extremely historically accurate film set during Reconstruction?
that's a documentary.
Okay.
Are we gonna?
The giant spider is fucking real.
Should I look up when the Secret Service was founded?
I don't think it's actually necessarily.
Do we want to go through this movie like
prudent
scene by scene? Because we have jumped into the dead heart of the center of this movie.
We gotta throttle back because we should assume that no one listening to this has or ever will see this film.
Even
and
though
is living a better life than we are.
Formed in 1865.
Oh, so right after, Lincoln's brains are still warm on the ground. And they're like, we should have maybe had some
probably do something about that.
Next time, we should have some guys there. What if?
Why did we let him go to a play by himself?
No, his wife was there. Look, Mrs. Lincoln did not bring the strap, and that's her mistake. She did not. Well, I don't know.
She was saving for the bedroom later.
Yeah, obviously. No,
this is the only horror movie podcast where we joke about Lincoln getting pegged.
There's got probably one more. We got to find them, and they can also come to the Battle of the Bands with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
We'll do an ad
podcast.
trade.
Yeah, amp versus amp here.
Let's roll through. Okay,
yeah.
So League of
Let's talk
Extraordinary
about
Gentlemen.
the basic premise.
Yeah, Calvin, pitch us the premise of the film.
The original film that
2003.
presently exists, the 2003 film, which came out 20 years ago. Okay, everyone is very nervous that a world war is about to start. The year is 1899. This is true.
They're very prescient.
Or at least the British are very nervous. Germany is very excited that a world war is about to break out historically. So the film begins in Africa, which is where the West, like Western Europe, was exporting all of their wars at the time. So a man in a bowler hat who maybe has a name, but I don't remember it.
M, right?
Nope. That guy's later.
M.
That's our boy Roxbury, which is when this podcast is going to get fully derailed, but we have not met him yet.
Yes, okay. We'll derail it in a minute.
A man in a bowler hat rocks up to like a country club in the middle of I don't even know if they name the nation that they are in, but colonial Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And he rocks up to an old man who is not Alan Quartermain, who he thinks is Alan Quartermain, and is like, James Bond, England needs you, or whatever. And the old guy, and then Sean Connery appears and it's like, I'm actually Alan Quartermain. And
Who is Alan Quartermain, you may be asking?
He's a guy from a book that no one has read.
Except Alan Moore. And
I'm probably like,
the more literary of you nerds out there.
I imagine it's like part of like the English
but his
canon.
Archetype is basically like the great white hunter adventurer.
Yeah, his superpower is gun.
Uh-huh.
Alan Quartermain, very good at gun, but at this point he's old ass Sean Connery in his last live action film role. He is in his 70s and he is looking like old ass Sean Connery.
They're propping him up like Harrison Ford in the new Indiana Jones, or
I was going to say, imagine the Sean Connery of The Last Crusade, but if he could not move with any of that speed that he does in that one.
And now he is the anchor of your action franchise.
Which, to be fair, the man still has a presence. Like I'm not going to come here and say Sean Connery's not good in this movie.
No.
But even on Cruise Control, he is the best performance here.
Oh, by a country mile.
Yeah.
So a man with a bowler hat shows up and tells Sean Connery that the Queen of England needs him. And Sean Connery says, fuck off, but I will go with you. It's a very sort of, it's a done deal.
Then he sees some machine guns for the first time.
Well, a bunch of dudes roll up on the country club to kill Sean Connery and Bowler Hat. They, in what I can only describe as sort of the end of Commando level improbability of failure of machine guns, which, by the way, there is no way Sean Connery has ever seen before.
Right.
Because
but that's one thing that is cool about, I'm going to interject with something that I think is cool about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like that it's a science fiction movie where the premise is technology that is ancient to us or a century old for us is mind-blowing to all the characters.
Yeah.
It's almost all stuff that's really going to happen.
Yeah.
My one qualm with that,
but 20 years early.
is that nobody is actually mind blown. Like,
except for Tom Sawyer when he sees a car for the first time and then drives.
I feel like it would be more fun if everyone was just going around the whole time. What the fuck is that?
Right.
What are you doing? Instead, everyone goes, "Oh my god, that seems to be a semi-automatic gun."
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like really like, and Tom Sawyer for being shoehorned in this movie, he should be shitting his pants every scene. But he like that's like sort of like the hack reason why you would write him in is to have a character who's going like whoa, but he no sells. He no sells everything instead of being like an audience surrogate.
I like the idea though of having an audience surrogate not for a modern audience, but for an 1899 audience.
but an audience surrogate who should let you know that historically, I mean, the horrors of industrialization and the coming World War are very real. They're very prescient themes. It's one of the thing I like about the movie is that like the horror is not a nuclear bomb that will destroy the world. It's like, hey, yeah, so there are like machine guns and tanks, and that's if a war happens with machine guns and tanks, a lot of people are going to die. And it's like, yeah, man, shirt.
That's exactly how that
you are
down.
not wrong. You are not wrong. So Bowler Hat has assembled other people. We're going to fast forward to a big room where our boy, is his name Richard Roxbury? What is this actor's name? The man who
Roxburgh is his name.
Roxburgh. There's a very
we love him.
There's a very cute moment where he introduces himself to Sean Connery as M, which is, of course, also the name of James Bond's boss in all the James Bond movies. So Sean Connery has a moment where he goes, M, and sort of makes a face, and it's like kind of the one little wink in the movie.
Right.
I thought that was cute.
Yellow spandex, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. So M, who is, we will later learn, is Moriarty from the Sherlock Holmes books, is like, so there's this guy called the Phantom who's been running around. He does have a tank. He does have machine guns. He has invented all of these weapons that are very much in this historical time period being developed. The first tank is not going to show up. Like the first good tank is still like a couple decades out, but that's neither here nor there. And he is basically both an accelerationist in trying to start this world war and also just sort of doing terrorism across Europe, trying to start it, and also is offering to sell his wares that he is doing this terrorism with to the highest bidder. Cool plot.
Good plot.
So
also a very James Bond plot.
Very James Bond plot. So the Crown,
very British plot.
The Crown has assembled for some fucking reason. They're not doing anything about this formally. They are just getting a bunch of literary characters together to try and stop this guy. Figure it out yourselves, boys. Adios. So we meet the Invisible Man, who is legally distinct. The Invisible Man, because there is a copyright on his ass, on the character in The Invisible Man.
Which, because I believe, while the book is public domain, because Universal adapted it into a film, I believe Jack Griffin specifically is Universal property. And so they never mention Jack Griffin. They just say that this is a thief who stole the formula.
From an unnamed scientist.
Right, they're not overwriting. They're careful in a couple places not to overwrite the literary canon, especially when it comes to Moriarty's deal, which never gets fully explained. They just have to make sure to say, oh no, I definitely... James Moriarty fell over the fucking waterfall or whatever in the last Sherlock Holmes thing, and I was born from that. Is it the same character? Doesn't matter. Completely not important to this film.
Yeah.
They're very careful not to step on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's toes.
Important to us, not just the Invisible Man, but we also get Mina Harker from Dracula, who was a character very briefly in our Dark Legion movie.
And now she's here.
She ate and fucked her husband to death.
In our movie, not in this one. Just to be clear.
Not necessarily non-canon.
That's true, because we don't know what happened to Jonathan Harker in the LXD
she does
universe.
not fucking say.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we haven't met. Yes, no, we do meet her.
Right. Mina Harker turns out to be a vampire herself.
Yes, but we don't know. She has introduced herself as a chemist. I don't know why everybody's being so fucking coy about their powers to each other when they can.
To give us a reveal moment later.
And we also meet Captain Nemo. Who Sean Connery is, I think we can say that character is improbably not racist against for being an Indian man.
It's also very important that they really hammer home that Africa loves Quatermain.
Yes.
He's this white adventurer guy who's traveled across Africa, and everyone in Africa thinks that he's great, and they say that Africa will not let him die.
He says a witch doctor told him that Africa would never let him die.
He's so precious to Africa.
The colonialism isn't offensive because we invented a bunch of black people that like him.
Yes, he specifically says, "Oh, I've been in the trenches. I've watched a lot of friends, both black and white, die." And so it's very important that we textually say that this British hunter in the year 1888 who's traveled through Africa for various mercenary things is super not racist.
Yeah, he has black friends, guys.
Yes.
It's fine.
Before it was cool,
colonialism solved. Africa will never let this white bitch die. So sure, whatever. And then sort of Moriarty's like, okay, kids, go fucking find this guy. Go find this phantom dude who's just been showing up at different parts of Europe and blowing up blimps and stealing scientists, he's basically doing a reverse Operation Paperclip is the other thing that the phantom is doing is he is stealing all the best scientists from different countries. Well, not reverse, just very early. Yeah. And is making them, we will learn later, make more of these new industrial weapons of war.
We were calling them, as we watched the movie, the Prio-Nazis.
Yes, absolutely killer joke. The Phantom is basically a Prio-Nazi. He is Nazi coded, but fully 30 years before it's going to be a thing. So, and then some stuff happens. They get on Nemo's big boat.
Yeah, then Act 2 is very blurry for me.
They spend a lot of, they roll up to get Dorian Gray.
That's right.
Who is immortal. Per Dorian Gray. Although I don't know that Oscar Wilde's book has him getting like shot and then having the Wolverine healing factor.
I have no recollection of that.
I don't know, it's mostly like a not aging thing for sex reasons, but it's fine. They meet Dorian Gray, a bunch of the Phantom's dudes show up with guns in Dorian Gray's very sort of poorly secured home that has a lot of space for guys to show up on the above floor and point guns. Again, machine guns, which these people should not recognize or know what they are because
they should be losing their minds.
Right, like weapons like this that are handheld don't exist.
And it would make them cooler because like, I was talking about like how I like this conceit from the movie, but I am doing a lot of the work for them being like, oh, that's cool. That's a deliberate anachronism.
Right. But like not wildly ahead of time.
Yes. Like the Nautilus is like a super cool giant submarine.
It's a dreadnought.
Yeah.
Which is also a submarine. That part's a little improbable. But like the idea of the navies of these nations making these enormous battleships was very much a factor in that leading up to World War I and then World War I. That's sort of the naval battles. And the submarine part, right? Yeah. These are things that are going to become very important in future wars. So it's a neat kind of anachronism by like 10, 15, 20 years for the most part. Anyway, they are trying to recruit Dorian Gray. Him and Mina Harker have chemistry, which is very weird because Dorian Gray is being played in just the most obviously gay way maybe possible. So you're like, I understand that this man wants to have sex with this vampire lady, but sure, he's Dorian Gray, very like sort of bisexual, omnivorous, whatever. But he's like, I'm not going to join you. And then much like Alan Quartermain, a bunch of dudes start shooting at them. We see Mina Harker kill a guy. Tom Sawyer shows up and shoots some dudes for how he knows where they are, what they're doing. Doesn't matter. The Phantom is there and he's like, you all have superpowers, join me. And they're all like, no. Again, why do any of these people care? Skinner's called a criminal and like a thief. He could just as soon turn heel. Doesn't matter. They're like, no, we love the crown. Because Alan Moore's writing us. So fucking, there is a fight. And none of the fight needs to happen because Mina Harker is here. And she is a vampire.
This is a recurring problem in the film.
She is a vampire. Later, she will turn into a bunch of bats. So the fact that all of these men with guns are very high up shouldn't be a factor because Mina Harker can turn into a bunch of bats and shred these dudes. Dorian Gray is immortal and has a sword and no gun. This is not helpful. Nemo is just a dude who has a sword.
Nemo's just like an inventor and submarine.
He's a pilot.
He also has sick martial arts moves from disciplines that I do not believe were... No, actually, I'm not an expert on martial arts. But it's extremely 2000s martial arts stunt work thing.
We'll call Scott Adkins and ask him.
He is also played by a Bollywood actor, and he's quite good. He is the second best actor in this movie.
Yeah, I enjoy his performance.
He's great.
He's the only one who
wait.
On the frame with Connery, like, does not seem like, hey, man, what are you doing here?
The opposite of Shane West's situation.
I don't know if
Shane West, who plays Tom Sawyer, is...
Yeah, he shows up in this scene. He's bad. I think every scene he is in, I was yelling, what is this twink doing here?
Which, at least they have a twink.
It's true. We're still trying to get one in our universe.
We're trying to get a twink.
They're a dime a dozen.
I know, but
they're everywhere.
We keep writing movies where we don't write twink parts.
Yeah, it's actually a problem that's been brought up to us in a previous episode. Yeah, we're working on it.
This is a moral failing.
Yes. Okay, and also, we never really got a solid answer whether or not I resolved that problem in Werewolves of London. I did not deliberately try to do anything, but I'm kind of wondering if any of the characters might apply, and I don't want to leave
if you can twinkify a character.
So, yes, if Please we'll get into the mailbag section
poll.
later, but
Do a poll of which character should be twinkified.
okay.
Speaking of characters we like, and I don't think we've gotten to him yet, but we also have another public domain overlap to talk about, which is Dr. Jekyll and Mr.
That's
Hyde.
basically the next. Look, I'm not looking at the plot right now. I'm just going to go on vibes, which is, I believe, how this movie was also written. So the next thing that they have to do is get Dr. Jekyll.
Dr. Jekyll, I love this performance. I think Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the best part of this movie. Hyde looks fucked up.
It rocks, though. It rocks.
No, yeah, here's the thing.
Normal size legs and huge Hulk arms.
Yes, and it's often a practical effect of like this
Yes,
huge
it's just foam rubber.
Yeah, and
it
what's
looks
funny
like
is
latex, just sweaty latex.
when
Which
I
is
wrote
also-
his scenes in The Wolfman, without realizing it, this is the version of Hyde
wanted,
that I
yeah.
had in my head.
Sick.
Yeah, it's fucked up and like it,
He
like
looks
the
like
really
he comes
cool-
out of Videodrome, which
Yes.
is complimentary. It's one of my favorite movies.
He looks like he
like, we're
got
not-
in the fly machine with a Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah. No, so this is the next scene, is we see Hyde. They are hunting Hyde across the rooftops of London. This is maybe the best action sequence actually in the film. Quartermain and Twink, Tom Sawyer, are running around. Tom Sawyer is just unloading double-handed pistols, and Quartermain is like, don't stop wasting bullets. This is very American. Don't shoot if you're not going to shoot him on purpose. And then he shoots at the rooftop where big, weird Stretch Armstrong
He's like guiding Hyde
is,
using his shots.
and he shoots the roof and not Hyde, and it makes Hyde jump to the next roof, because not only is he very strong, he's very agile. He's basically like a big body horror gorilla.
Fucking
and
rocks.
Tom Sawyer is like, you missed. Fucking Alan Quartermain, who apparently has not told this guy who's unloading on him with bullets from a gun the mission, is like, I am not trying to shoot him. I am trying to guide him. So I guess he's just brought Tom Sawyer and is letting him shoot at the guy they're trying to capture, knowing that he will not make contact with his body, which is at this point mostly just very exposed, gnarly flesh that has ripped out of a tuxedo. And
Yeah.
he seems to, all of his
Oh, with a big top hat too.
with a big top hat, which when he shrinks back down
Is
is
a
still
big
big.
top- Yeah.
So he has,
He has a custom-made Hyde top hat.
yeah,
Yes.
Hyde at
Hey,
some
listen,
point.
I'm in favor of Jekyll and Hyde keeping separate wardrobes. I put that in my movie.
That's true. He had a whole separate hotel
It means
room.
he had to
Yeah.
go to a milliner and say, hi, I'm either Hyde took the time in between his raids of just like debauchery to be like, I gotta go get a hat. Or Jekyll was like, hello, I need the biggest fucking top hat you can possibly make. It's for my demon alter ego. He needs it for his nighttime raids of debauchery.
I really like the sort of production design brain that I imagine happened here, which is, okay, we have a character that basically turns into the Hulk. And what's the big problem with the Hulk? His pants wouldn't stay on. That's the big logical leap with the Hulk. Is that if he's going to Hulk out, there's no way those purple pants wouldn't just shred and you would see his big Hulk dick.
Yeah.
And so we're going to solve this problem by keeping the legs the same size.
The legs will be normal.
The legs will not grow.
The pants are, which means he's running around in leather bottom shoes, by the way.
Oh yeah, and just like normal black slacks.
Yeah.
He's just hide and slacks.
He's
and
in-
then
he
his
is in-
upper body, the
That's
shirt
wool. This is
shredded.
$18.99. That's wool. It is swampy down there.
Yeah, it is.
Those are
it is
wool
not
trousers.
breathing at all.
Those are leather bottom shoes, and he is jumping off of cobblestone streets and like tarred rooftops.
I bet he wishes he broke out of his pants when because he's
Parkour
especially with
king.
That running he's doing, he's chafing down there like a mother.
Yeah.
The wool on the inside of those thighs.
Yeah,
like
no way.
Jekyll's gonna come back to him and be like, oh, what did you fucking do to me, man?
I mean, it's kind of what he does, because they do successfully get him into like a big sort of a groundhog trap. And they bring him onto the boat, the Nautilus, which Nemo has this monstrous sword-shaped, all white with silver fucking decor. It's very cool looking.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I love
ship.
the look of the design.
It is incredibly advanced for the age. Apparently, the two people who have technology in this world are the Phantom, the bad guy, and Nemo, who is not, he's like, oh, I'm a pirate. And I'm like, you don't seem to need to be a pirate, because you seem to be the richest man in the world, because he will also show up with a Rolls Royce, like a custom Rolls Royce later. Why are you doing piracy?
Maybe he's a really good pirate, and that's where it all.
He's a former pirate. Yeah, he pirated his way into
What?
And also,
this lifestyle.
bold of you to suggest that rich people don't steal things.
No. I'm just saying, why
hard
would you
habit
still
to
be
commit.
doing pirate shit?
Yes.
You seem to be the god of the ocean.
Yes.
You have a ship that is more advanced than anything that's going to come out for the next 25 years. You're Poseidon.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're king. Anyway, fucking whatever. They get him on the boat and he turns back in what is a very cool and gnarly sort of de-transition sequence.
Yes.
Into a man.
He's a detransitioner.
Yeah, and this is why people have to be on waiting lists before they are given the hide serum.
I just don't think we should give it to children.
Well, no, you got to give them puberty blockers so they're ready to become Hyde.
When
they don't have to
18.
undo any of the Jekyll stuff. Yeah, when they turn 18.
And you have to get so many signature,
it's letters and letters. Yeah, it's a big pain. But if you go to an informed consent Hyde clinic, you can really speed that process up, and you can be hulking out of your shirt just before and after the first.
Back then, they had to do the DIY Hyde stuff because you couldn't just go to the doctor.
Which is, unfortunately, in England, it's the same way, actually. They're still doing it the same way today. The NHS has not caught up. If you can't get, depot testosterone, the Hyde serum is just as good.
Listen, all of these characters are rich and British, so therefore they're probably TERFs in modern day, where they exist.
So Hyde turns back into a guy, just a man with mutton chops. He's actually another very good actor in this one. I forget his name, but he's quite good.
He's good. He's fine.
And he seems very embarrassed. He seems very embarrassed to have turned back into Jekyll.
He was in something. I can't remember what it is.
There's a lot of pausing the movie to look into IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
It was the movie that whatever the other movie we had been talking about that night. He was also in. I don't know. He looks like Tim Blake Nelson, but British.
He's a.
We're talking about the actor who plays Hyde?
Yeah.
It's a great description of that actor.
He's a Guy Ritchie regular.
Okay, yeah. Tim Blake Nelson, but British. So then they're on the boat for a while. Then there's just a whole sort of weird if you've ever seen the movie The Big Chill, on this boat for a while.
Well,
Dorian Gray and Mina make out.
Mm-hmm. And we actually have not also addressed the fact that the actor who plays M in this movie was Dracula in Van Helsing, which came out the same year.
No, that's Rockbird.
Richard Roxburgh. We went down a whole Richard Roxburgh.
So he's a Baz Luhrmann regular.
Okay.
He was Elvis's dad in the motion picture Elvis recently. Uh-huh. He's in Moulin Rouge. I think he's great in everything he's ever done. And every time he's on screen, I was yelling, "That's my boy."
And yes, he was Dracula in Van Helsing and met his wife on the set of Van Helsing because she was playing Dracula's wife.
Oh. She's an opera singer, IRL. They have fascinating lives. And then we went down everything, like all the theater Roxburgh has done.
Okay.
Fascinating guy.
I have taken this down quite a long detour.
We said we were going to do a Richard Roxburgh detour. He did fucking, what was it? The
he's
cherry
done like
orchard or something. Yeah, Godot and the cherry
he's done a lot
orchard.
of Ibsen.
No, Uncle Vanya. I think he was Uncle Vanya.
It's incredible. Spend some time looking up Richard Roxburgh. Just what
His
a life.
Wikipedia. God, it's the kind of thing where it's like, if you could steal anybody's life and live it, yes, you could do the most famous man alive or whatever, but I feel like Richard Roxburgh's would be the most interesting one to be I'm going to live life again as this fucking guy.
He's a character actor. You're going to know his face if you see him. And every time you see him on screen, you're like, well, this guy's bad. This is a bad guy in this movie because he always has also the most. He's got a John Waters mustache, but on an ostensibly heterosexual person, which is about as menacing as you can be when you are as short as this guy seems to be.
That's the simplified code of the queer coded villain.
Yeah. Is what if this guy looked gay but is being straight, and you're like, oh no, this is Jafar shit. No. It's a
But here's where in the plot we get to a real part where probably just because of the nature of the structure you would want to do with an ensemble action piece like this that has a band getting the band together element. Up to this point, I realized, this is basically the exact shape of Joss Whedon's Avengers in 2012. Because you have your individual characters getting together, you have your minor action sequence. It's I guess we're a team now, and then we spend some time on a boat. Everything slows down.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually isn't the boat invaded by
they go to Venice. No, they go to Venice.
They go to Venice, okay.
So they're headed to Venice for plot fucking expedience reasons. The Phantom is going to blow
Speaking
it up.
of expedience, let's
pick up the
zoom
pace a little
through
bit.
the third act.
Okay, we're going to zoom through
broad
this.
strokes.
Before we get to, so they got to go to Venice. Before we get to the Venice scene, here is my sort of last thing. So we spend some time on this boat. Mina Harker and Dorian Gray make out. There's this, people are both becoming friends and also not trusting each other. Mina Harker is a vampire. We've established this. We do see her on the deck of the boat at high fucking noon.
Yeah.
Okay, I recall this. However, in the Dracula novel, is there the sunlight thing?
That is a good question.
Because I don't think there is.
Because the vampire rules are very sketchy here.
And
I don't know
recall
what
in
they're
the-
supposed to be.
And I recall in the Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula movie, that Dracula spends quite a bit of time
In the
hanging
sunlight?
out in the sunlight.
Okay, if it happens in the Francis
Stalking
Ford
Winona
Coppola,
Ryder.
I will take that
Yeah.
as it happens in Bram Stoker, and so it'll get a pass.
And here's my thing. Again, Tom Sawyer is also on the deck, and he tries to shoot a shot with Mina. It doesn't work. And this is a regular guy. And again, he should have never seen a machine gun before. He's certainly never met a vampire. And he doesn't take the time to be like, hey, so remember the other day when I saw you turn into bats and then kill a guy and drink his blood? The book Dracula doesn't exist in this universe. So, hey, what the fuck was that? What the fuck is a vampire? And what the fuck are you? He does not ask any of these questions. He's just like, hey, lady who I saw vivisect a man 2 days ago. Did you want to have sex? I respect that. However,
I empathize.
I would ask some questions first.
I mean, at the very least, it's an icebreaker.
Right.
It's a better icebreaker than just like,
hey babe. Yeah, which is basically what he does. He does like a Johnny Bravo thing and gets a sort of Johnny Bravo response, which he deserves. And then Dorian Gray rolls up and he's like, I, however, am going to succeed at this because I'm a devious bisexual who is obviously going to betray you all in 10 minutes of screen time. We get to Venice. The Phantom is going to, everybody in the not UN, a bunch of diplomats are going to meet in Venice. Meetings like this were sort of happening. It was in Geneva, to the best of my recollection, whatever. He's going to blow up Venice and sink it into the sea because Venice is, a city that's built in a way that is.
We've all seen Casino Royale.
Yeah. He wants to do Casino Royale. He wants to blow up Venice. Okay. This is when Nemo produces off of the deck of his, again, enormous battleship, which is not drawing nearly enough attention from the people having a party in the street of Venice because it's the biggest fucking boat on the planet.
Neither is the Rolls Royce.
And then he produces a Rolls Royce, a horseless carriage is produced. It is also all white with silver details. It looks sick, but it's a car. And it's a car that looks like if I saw it today on the street, I'd be like, yo, what is that? And
Venice.
The Model T
Unperturbed.
doesn't exist. Everybody in Venice unperturbed about this horseless carriage with the enormous rims. Okay, stuff starts popping off. Basically, the Phantom does half of his explosion, and they go to stop the other half of the team assembles. This is when Tom Sawyer gets in a car, which would be the first time he's ever seen it, and immediately knows how to drive. Because apparently his superpower is not just gun, but less good gun than Alan Quartermain. It is also instinctually, medically, I know how to drive, which he then does through the streets.
His X gene activates. And he knows how to drive
yeah,
a
he
car.
knows how to drive a car. Dorian Gray hops out of the car to like start killing some guys with swords, and then Mina turns into bats and starts basically killing all of the suppressive fire guys that are lined up throughout Venice. Why this guy's blowing up Venice with all of his dudes with guns in the buildings in Venice? Unclear.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen has just wildly varying power differentials. Like, you've got Alan Quartermain. I have a musket that I know how to shoot. I am Mina Harker. I turn into bats and can wipe out all these people. I'm an invisible guy. I don't know how to fight. But like, I mean, I guess we deal with this in the Dark Legion a little bit.
And these power differentials are also, again, not that much similar to, okay, we have the Hulk, and then we have Hawkeye, Quartermain, and we have Black Widow, who in this case would be like our Tom Sawyer, has 2 guns.
Yeah, that's true.
The part where 2 of their party members are invincible. I've never let a D&D DM would not let you have 2 party members who are functionally unkillable.
Well, that's why we killed our Hyde.
That's true.
That's actually not why we killed Hyde.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3. Because Hyde, when Jekyll is in Hyde mode, we also see that he's like, bullets don't do shit to his regular human skin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you have to bench where it becomes that bullets aren't a thing. Seems cool.
I do feel like you'd have a hard time killing like Brock Lesnar with a pistol.
Dudes with machine guns unloading on him. I don't know.
Cut the part where I advocate murdering Brock Lesnar.
We're on the road to WrestleMania.
He's going to hear this.
You're just cutting a promo.
Yeah, you're just cutting a promo against Brock Lesnar. So the Venice is only half exploded. The party that is happening does not stop.
Now,
they seem very happy that the city isn't exploding. Nobody freaks out. But Dorian Gray escapes. Also, there's a boring ass scene briefly with Quartermain he pursues the Phantom into a graveyard. The Phantom says some shit about his dead son. and Quartermain fails to kill him. We reveal that the Phantom is Moriarty. He's been Moriarty the whole time, and he got all of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen together so he could steal their like powers variously through stealing their blood, like Mina Harker, or their DNA, or their invisibility shit, whatever. Him and Dorian Gray escape in this little escape pod that Nemo has on his boat. Dorian Gray is working with the Phantom because the Phantom has the painting of him where his immortality exists. Okay.
Now, I'm going to pause
Your
here.
level of enthusiasm for the film, it feels like it
Because now
drops off a fucking cliff.
Because now the plot has shown up.
So now that the plot has shown up, why don't we cap our recap there? If you want to find out the third act, unless there's something that is going to be crucial.
Yeah, why
don't we go over? Because I want to take a break, and when we come back, get into your pitch for what your
the third act is going to be relevant.
So let's just hit the bullet points that are going to feed into your requel.
The same way that the Phantom has developed the first tank and these machine guns, like handheld machine guns, because various machine guns have existed for a time before 1899. Whatever. He wants to steal, specifically Mina Harker's blood. I don't know why Quartermain's in this shit at all. I don't know why he called him at all. I guess he meant to actually kill him in Africa. What the fuck ever. Skinner's skin, because he's the Invisible Man.
Yeah.
And Hyde's serums, because he just has he's just brought a big case of I turn into a mutant juice on the boat that he does not keep locked in a meaningful way.
This is the trans agenda in action.
I guess I also keep all of my vials in a little wooden box, but I don't have to worry about you can't weaponize it in the same way, whatever. He has a big fort in non-specific cold, fucking winter set piece. And he's going to use this. He's going to give all of the scientists he stole. He's going to make them, I guess, synthesize all of this to make an army of super soldiers. He's made all of this fucked up armor. He's basically trying to make Gundams, but like single man Gundams.
Uh-huh.
And we
should have let him.
And we should have let him.
Cool. Yeah.
Mina Harker kills Dorian. There's a big fight scene. Mina Harker kills Dorian Gray. One guy drinks a whole jug of Hyde serum and turns into Omega Hyde. Hyde and Nemo try to fight him. That part's pretty sick.
No, I actually like that sequence.
That sequence is quite good.
We never do get to see the promise of we're going to combine all these powers into one dude. I feel like that's a pretty big promise to make and then not follow through on it.
So this is why I wanted to talk about the third act. So Moriarty does have now his own little stupid case that has some of the serum for both turning invisible, which he takes himself in the sequence where he fights Quartermain and Huck Finn. Or Tom Sawyer, rather, whatever. I keep saying them interchangeably. And also Mina Harker blood. We do not see anybody become vampire, but we are meant to believe that there is also a serum where they could become vampire.
Honestly, it's good that this didn't get combined because they would have jumped the shark on our invisible vampire by 20 years. But instead, we got to do that.
So he's got this little box with the three vials in it. Moriarty stabs Quartermain. Tom Sawyer shoots Moriarty while he's running away. Moriarty falls down dead, and he drops the box with all of the stuff into a conveniently broken part of the sort of ice over a lake, and the box with all the stuff falls in the bottom of a lake. They have rigged the place with explosives.
I have a feeling this is going to be important.
So the base blows up.
Sequel.
All of Nemo's dudes are in this base trying to evacuate the scientists and their families. We do not see them get out. The amount of henchman disregard on the part of both the Phantom and Nemo, a putative good guy, enormous.
Yeah.
I think we're meant to believe that all of these guys get out, but I don't believe that.
The film is not interested in showing
Quartermain is dead.
Not care about them.
And at the very end, we see everybody. They have buried Quartermain back in Africa, and then a witch doctor dances, and there's a weird little end sequence, and then the movie ends.
Yes, there is.
They bury his old ass back in Africa, which promised it would never let him die. And then there's a thunderstorm happens. And by the way, Witch Doctor immediately starts summoning this thunderstorm the minute the rest of the crew walks away. And they do not turn around.
Yeah.
They do not check.
Well, they're heading to the car. They're like, oh shit, it's about to rain.
One car on planet fucking Earth. And they all give kind of nondescript, what do we do now? And it's we'll see if this movie makes enough money to do a sequel. And they walk off screen. And that's where it ends. And I just wanted to bang through that. The last sequence is cool, but the part where the promise of these super soldiers is not paid off is bullshit. Hence why we are doing a sequel 20 years later.
Which is a good place for us to take a break. And when we come back, Calvin is going to pitch us his take on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen requel.
I'm going to pitch us what I have, and you two are going to help me flesh it out.
We're working for the competition today.
We're
Dylan.
workshopping. We're
Yes.
workshopping.
Yes.
You have to.
Like you said,
ha-
it's Oppo research.
Yeah,
Opera-
it's Oppo
yeah,
research.
we need to get in the minds of opposing studios, and then we'll know how to defeat them. So we'll be right back with more Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe?
You, monster. We've trekked 1,000 miles across starless seas, blighted mires, and forests without end, all in seeking you, to ask you a question. What are you looking for in an apartment?
Would you be a good Cub Scout leader?
Can I ride you, or would that be disrespectful?
Should I invest in subterranean realty?
Do you find it sexy when I T-pose and spin in a circle?
Every episode of Finding Monster Right has us asking questions like these about monsters from folklore, pop culture, and our own world.
Join us as we meet alien allies, cryptic comrades, and friendly fiends. After all, it's not just a show about monsters, right?
Right.
Finding Monster Right.
We found you, now you find us.
Hello, and welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? We're finally back after going on a million bit diversions in our brief break. But now we are back.
No bits.
It has been a true riff suite here since.
There will be no bits in the second half. We're going to get right down to business.
I am not accustomed to being the third wheel in a riff suite.
You're not the third
You are not
wheel.
third wheel.
Okay,
Wheeling it.
the
This
two
is
of you have
definitely-
been doing bits together for years, one-on-one.
This is
That's
a bit
true.
triad. You're
Okay.
just you're look, you're the new hot thing.
Oh, all right. Well,
You're the
does our universe need an otter?
who's the fourth guy in the Three Musketeers?
Hey,
Zeppo.
great transition, because guess who's in the new one?
Oh, hell yeah. Okay,
No!
so let's get into
perfect.
it.
Let's get into it.
So we are going to now hear from Calvin the skeleton of his pitch
Yes.
for what we're doing with, or what an unnamed other studio is
Redacted
going to be
Studios.
doing for a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen sequel. Is there a title? Do you have a title?
Yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 2, League of Nations.
Oh,
Okay, we have to drop the 2. That's my first studio note right there. We don't do sequels
don't do
with
that
2s
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah.
It's just the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen : League of Nations.
Right, because
No,
other
they
people are
did it
gonna
with
think
Now
that
You
they-
See Me Too.
Okay, but that's fine.
We won't be citing the Now You See
But
Me
they
movies
should-
as a positive reference.
And also, yeah, because they shouldn't have called it Now You See Me Too. They should have called it
No, You
now
Don't.
you
Now
don't.
You Don't.
And the fact that they didn't
Everyone
is a
knows
fucking
that,
affront
yeah.
to cinema.
Can
That's
somebody
okay.
actually look up the names of all of the guys, all of the Three Musketeers, of which there are 4?
Because you forgot them? Or
Yeah,
because
because I super forgot them. Didn't put in my notes. I have a little notebook in my hand. So,
Is it all 4 of them in the... Well, I'll let you
yeah,
get to it.
guess what? So, if you
Give us
couldn't-
the pitch.
if
Give us
you-
the pitch.
If you couldn't tell, the excitement waxed and waned in our description of the original League of Extraordinary Gentlemen based on which characters we thought were interesting.
Mhm.
I think the 25-minute hide sideline would indicate to anybody listening that he's going to be in this one. So I want to set it. It's been 20 years since League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Mhm.
I want to set it 20 years later.
Okay.
Now, the first one is in 1899. This one we're going to put in 1919. Some things have happened
Mhm.
since.
A few world events have taken place.
A few world events have taken
This
place.
also would be in the tradition of the comics where there are different leagues for different eras in history.
I'm going to check back in and say Athos, Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan.
We're gonna bring them up. I knew D'Artagnan. Everybody else sounds like whatever.
And I remember Porthos because of the name of the dog on Star Trek Enterprise.
Of course you do. That's very, very Dylan.
Yeah.
I know the Star Trek.
Once
version
again,
of
if I
that.
don't mention Star Trek on the show every episode, Paramount comes to my house.
See, I had to look these up because I didn't have any go-to horror references for any of those
Mhm.
4 names.
Yeah,
I do
that's-
have...
Yeah, they didn't do a Hellraiser of fucking.
I mean, I think Hellraiser 4 might actually tap into that a little bit, but we weren't...
The
we'll cover that
Avignon
right now.
papacy? No,
I have no way of knowing you're joking.
Yeah, no,
I don't know how much I'm joking either.
You could tell me anything happens in a Hellraiser movie, and I will just nod.
Hellraiser 4, the acting debut of Adam Scott.
Who, by the way, is in Star Trek First Contact as the helm officer of the USS Defiant.
As a Cenobite. 1919, World War I has happened. The events of 1899, when they're trying to forestall a world war, has only kicked the can down the road. World War I happens as it happened in real life, more or less, although I guess they had better tanks to begin with, so I guess Belgium gets even more fucked up in August and September of 1914. The war has come to a close. Germany is the big loser, and it just gets absolutely shadracked in all of the sort of treaties made afterwards. So now we are entering this time where internationally there is a desire to stop any future wars, any future world wars like that from happening. Obviously, we know that they fuck up, which I think is kind of fun. I think it's kind of fun to have the dramatic irony of like.
You think World War II was fun, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's laugh right. No, I think it's interesting to watch characters who you know are going to fail, but who succeed in like ultimately, who are going to win the battle but lose the war. It's kind of compelling.
Yeah.
So let's run this ship back. They bury Alan Quatermain in Africa, which inexplicably will not let this colonist die. Okay, let's go with that. Let's say he comes back to life in the instant it cuts to credits in the first one. Let's say he comes back to life in the prime of life. Let's not full Benjamin Button this and say he's a baby. Let's say he comes back and he's in his like late 20s, early 30s.
And this is a CGI Sean Connery, or do we had somebody else playing?
No,
him?
we get it. I think this is an opportunity to get a different actor because Sean Connery is dead, right?
But we still want him to be Scottish. So we're going to get the guy who plays the Hound, who would be 20 years after he came back in his like late 20s, early 30s. That's about how old the Hound is now. I believe the actor's 52.
That's cool.
And he doesn't easily like you look him up when he's not in Game of Thrones covered in like dirt and muck. He's plausible. I'm sure he's like a full head taller than Connery was, but he is a Scottish actor who can do some action shit.
Yeah, and you know what?
He can still be the old man of the group.
Has kind of a similar facial structure. We're talking about actor Rory McCann.
Rory McCann, hell of a name. So our boy Rory is going to be Alan Quatermain, who we were joking about calling Alan Pentamain, because this will be the fifth time he comes. This will be the fifth time he comes back. In the mythos of this, Alan Quatermain did not have a son who died, which is what he bangs on in the 03 version. That was just him, but younger. And all of the rumors of him having had the son in this and that, the stories get kind of mixed up. It's just Alan Quatermain who keeps dying and coming back to life because they keep burying him in Africa. We're on life number 5 for Alan. So he's back.
And you're holding to this Alan Quatermain thing.
Pentamain.
Sorry.
Yeah, Alan Pentamain. Quintamain maybe actually funnier. So our boy's back. Let's just say he fought in World War I, and he came out okay. One of about 16 men who survived the war. And now we're gonna have not Moriarty but Watson. So W, the inversion of M, he's
like that.
Good Wario, is like, hey, look, the first thing, getting a bunch of British people together clearly did not, it worked, but it didn't work. What we need is international cooperation among the most extraordinary people from sort of each of the major nations here. 1919, Russia's wrapping up their civil war. We're counting Russia out of this, right? They're doing their own thing. Everybody's very kind of confused and wary about it, so we're going to put them over here. But the rest of Europe should really have a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen again, but to sort of quash these conflicts right before they spring up. We have sort of a blank slate after the war. But let's not have it be a bunch of British people rocking into other people's lands and half exploding Venice. Let's have it be a little bit of everyone, people who know the land and the country and the places. So we're going to get the band together. We're going to get the Three Musketeers, who are 4 dudes. They are going to be French and Haitian. They are all going to be black veterans of World War I.
Hell yeah.
Because Haiti was involved in World War I basically for like the last 6 months, but whatever, people went over, which gives us an excuse to cast 4 black actors in a movie that was white as hell, except for Nemo in the last one. Let's not do that.
And all of his expendable Indian
all of his very expendable, lineless fucking henchmen. So we're going to get them in it. Now, the Three Musketeers, what is their superpower? I was talking to some friends about this who know the book much better than I do. And basically, independently, all 4 of them are like very competent fighters, but they have enormous personal flaws and sort of flaws of their own. With their powers combined, when the 4 of them are acting in a unit, they are the main character and they have plot armor. That's basically their power. When they are together, they are the D&D group, that is just running through people. So separate, they are not exceptional. Together,
sword fighters.
They are. Well, it's 1919. Let's give these gentlemen guns. These are veterans.
But they have that sort of like psychically connected Metal Gear Solid 4 like pack hunting ability.
Or Scream 6, the Core 4.
The core 4.
This is on their own. They are vulnerable together, watch the fuck out. They will steamroll.
So that's cool. So we've established something that makes them exceptional and has a built-in weakness, which is
being divided.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sort of covers France and Haiti. What do I want to do next? So thinking about books that people would know, not digging into things quite as deep as the ones that our boy Alan is from.
That is the trick. You want to make it accessible to a blockbuster audience.
Yeah, who's at least absorbed them by osmosis.
Yeah,
right?
you want to have some that are draws, and you can have a couple that are obscure. Like people did not go see. You could have Sean Connery play Alan Quartermain because people are going to see Sean Connery.
Right,
not
Even
see Alan
then, you have
Quartermain.
to add Tom Sawyer into the mix,
who's basically
as additional.
That's
sweetener.
like, did you really have to, or did like some
Did the
John
studio
Peters
have
type say
operated-
we need to have an American guy in it?
If he had operated as an audience surrogate, it would have been a great reason. Okay, so this is why I have notes written down. Okay. Germany. I personally don't know a lot of 19th century German novels. I'm guessing you two don't either, right? Yeah.
I've never read
Not
a
off
book.
the top.
Cool. So we're going to default to the sort of German, or I believe Austrian thing that we do all know, which is Wagner, and we're going to get Valkyrie. Nemo's gone. There's no way Nemo's coming back for this. So we're going to get Valkyrie, and she's going to have a plane.
Okay, that fucking rocks.
Love that.
Big gold plane.
Is it Brunhilde? Can we call her Brunhilde?
Yeah, it's Brunhilde and it's Gwendolyn Christie. This is the casting decision I have fucking made.
Yes.
Oh, anything else would be a mistake. This is good.
So
That's
this is
great.
Brunhilde. It is Gwendolyn Christie, and she has a big gold plane. And in keeping with the sort of, because planes in World War I were garbage, so we're going to have her have a sort of like the kind of plane that you might have had, like a bomber from 1948. Like it's just going to be far too advanced, and this is going to be how our guys
We're
get
gonna continue
around.
this theme, yeah.
Yeah.
Spain. Let's get Spain in the mix. Let's get fucking Don Quixote. But modern, okay, how would you do that? Well, you do a sort of drunken master thing.
Okay.
Because
I
he
like
is
that.
sort of, delusional, right? This is the absorbed wisdom we have from this book. But the thing is, he has like the lathe of heaven. So even if he is tilting at windmills, if he is waving a broomstick at you, if he says his broomstick is a sword, if that's what he thinks it is a sword. And if he hits your arm with that broomstick, that arm's coming off as though you have been struck with a sword.
I love the comedy potential in this.
Yes.
And also anything that can create a good, interesting action scene that we haven't seen before is great.
Right.
Obviously, it's fresh in a lot of our minds. We're recording this on Oscar weekend, but thinking about the fanny pack fight scene in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Absolutely.
That kind of vibe is possible with this character.
And it's fun that you can do it in a low budget way. Part of why we were salivating over Hyde before is like it's practical effects. It looks like that. We want to do minimal CG. It's the one thing if you see a big cool gold plane that's CG, you're like, okay, that's neat. I'm okay with the computer making a thing that doesn't exist. It's another thing to see a guy riding a broomstick like it's a horse because he thinks he's a 15th century knight, but then he's rocking at you at the speed as though he was riding a horse. And that's a problem for you.
Can we have dust kicking up underneath him as he rides?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah,
that's going
great.
to look cool as hell.
I like that.
I think that would be fun. And the actors that we are bringing back from the original, we're bringing back Quartermain as
Pentamain.
Pentamain/Quintermain, but he's our boy Rory. We are bringing back Mina Harker because she's a vampire, and it does fucking why not? And we are bringing back Dr. Jekyll.
Yes.
They are all going to be back. There's no reason. They were all like Dr. Jekyll was a pretty young man.
Which means for our opposition research that we will have overlapping characters in the Dark Universe.
Yes, which I also think is interesting.
But both of our overlapping characters are dead. We have killed off our Mina and our Jekyll and Hyde. And you're not bringing back the Invisible Man, it sounds like.
So we kind of have actually, by accident, kind of created the Quicksilver resolution.
Yes.
Like how we had, for 1 year, there were 2 Quicksilvers, but then the MCU killed theirs immediately.
Yeah, so they're only in one franchise at a time.
Yeah. So are you, I guess, assuming we're going to bring back Peter Wilson as Mina Harker and Jason Fleming as Jekyll and Hyde, or do you want to get more newer actors?
If they're available, bring it back.
I think it's safe to say with the budget you'd be working with, they're available.
I think so. So I'm totally fine bringing them both back. I also want them to be sort of harrowed by war, right? World War I was this massive catastrophe. I mean, it was an international catastrophe. I think World War II, there's a little bit more about it in our cultural milieu, but like, besides, I guess we're All Quiet on the Western Front, which is like an Oscar film this year.
And Wonder Woman.
And the two of them have in Wonder Woman, and the two of them have medical backgrounds, so they can both have been doctors in the war, right? They can both have seen some stuff, have reasons to have not been killed in combat. Mina because that's not possible. Jekyll because LOL.
I spent the whole war as bats.
Yeah, I spent the whole.
I was never a woman.
I mean, she could have been like
I was all bats.
field researching, right? I mean. You can shoot a vampire as much as you want. Doesn't matter. She can just be on the field.
Yeah.
And apparently during broad daylight. So we're totally, so we can bring them all back. Now, here's the thing. We had this exploding base in the last one. We had a lot of, we did not see if the evacuation was completely successful. I think we're made to think that it was. I think there's a lot of henchmen that die. I think this is 1919 and the Bolshevik revolution has just succeeded. I think this is about international allegiances, but I also think it's about class warfare, because now the 20th century and industrialization are in full fucking gear.
We do love stories about class warfare on this podcast.
Is there any other kind? So I've been kicking around, okay, who's the bad guy in this? Because we're going to have our guy bringing them together being Watson, who's just your sort of like chief administrator of the Sherlock Holmes stories.
And you don't want to do the same twist again.
You don't want to do the same twist again, but I want somebody to have gone back to the wreckage of the base and to the weird ice lake where all of the serums were dropped.
Yeah.
And I want somebody to have gone back and gotten them and to have been like, guess what? We're doing super soldiers. We're combining all of these. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if our villain should be one of the henchmen who was abandoned in this big fight sequence. That feels a little trite. That feels a little bit like maybe it would have been like interesting in 2012. I don't know if we can think of something better than that, but I want to go back to the scene of the last one and to be like, this wasn't cleaned up.
Yeah, you're you
didn't fix anything.
Our version of the Batman versus Superman teaser.
And also just the notion that, like, again, you didn't fix anything, and this isn't going to fix anything
because of this. No.
We are 20 years away from Germany invading Poland, right? Like this whole shit's going to start over again. And so I think we need the loop to be open thematically. I think we need to see the sins of the past coming back unresolved.
Right. And that reverberates well with your whole situation of, okay, it's the World War I, the Great War to end all wars. We definitely solved it. It's done. It's like, no, you've just
crippled Germany's economy.
Yes.
Austria-Hungary doesn't exist anymore.
Guess how desperate they are.
Yeah.
So it's, I think it works with the idea.
I think it works, but I think it's not, because the movie is 20 years old and because people don't necessarily, it's not at the top of everyone's minds. I think if we are going to do our villain is someone who is wronged in this film, I think we do have to make them a literary character.
Do they have to be wrong? But here's the thing. I'm not convinced on who the villain should be. This is, we have gotten to the end of my little notepad. We have gotten to the end of what I feel confident in about sort of how I want things to be oriented, where we have, again, some mythical Brunhilde. We have some characters who are kind of unkillable. We have some characters whose power is just good at gun. Right. We have an international team assembly. We're doing the same thing, but slightly different.
It's a really great core idea for a sequel, which is, okay, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, all literary characters, but it is just sort of like British with the exception of Nemo and Tom Sawyer. And now,
well, India, though, British colony.
Right, a British colony, yeah. And so now to expand it post World War I into a global sort of, and still using literary characters from all these different regions is very smart. And I think we would need to find another literary character to be the villain. You've
left a hole for yourself that is potentially smart to fill, which is we're doing a story about class warfare between the two world wars, and you've deliberately left out Russia, where there's a lot of literature to use.
Yes, but I'm trying to think, like, it's literature about sad men. I don't know how to talk myself into any superpowers. Look, I'm ready to come here and talk to you about how Stalin's first code name was Koba, which was based on a fucking character from a book that none of us have read. But like, there's two
immortalized,
villains.
Of course, in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
There's two villains, and they're called the Brothers Karamazov.
Right, but like for real though, like, I couldn't think of. I mean, the idea of having I'm just gonna wind up doing Red Dawn, like I just.
It does feel a little trite now, I think, to just make Russia the bad guy.
That's the other thing. I want to avoid.
More interesting to it's of course it's hairy given the historical context, but we don't have an American character in this yet.
Well, America doesn't join the fucking League of Nations, so who fucking cares?
An opportunity. Maybe our antagonist is either a famous character from American universe or something. It could be.
British. Charles Dickens character.
That's who came to mind.
But also,
we were talking about it.
I mean, they said that that is where we could maybe get our antagonist from. Or I wish I was well read. I wish I'd read a book.
I've read a couple books, but none of them are coming to mind immediately. But I'm sure we'll find it. The other thing I want to bring up is because sort of the thing with these with the first movie is that we're discovering technology like 20 years before it happens, right?
Yeah.
And we're kind of already dealing with that a little bit with the plane.
I'm so ready for you to put us into space.
I was actually going to say, I think we need to get a nuclear weapon involved somehow. Even if it's just like a tease at the end where like we find out that the villain has like developed something that will lead to, this kind of thing.
We're talking atomic. We're talking atomic very early on. The atom bomb.
But if the idea is that the threat from the first film is from 20 years ahead.
Yeah.
Right? That makes sense.
They have this very advanced technology.
And,
which we can do.
The technology here could be atomic.
So we can have Gwendolyn Christie having a plane that functions like a sort of Boeing, right? Like a 747, like a passenger plane might, in a way that just simply did not exist at the time. So we have good guy tech that is like Nemo's sort of dreadnought or car. I can't fucking.
Tom Sawyer shows up and just knows how to fly the fucking jet.
He just knows how to fly the jet. Yeah, I don't know. We also don't have to go back to the whole invisible and vampire. And although, again, if this
like that.
If this is a movie that is based, if this is a franchise that wants to chase your heels, then invisible vampires that also have Jekyll and Hyde serum.
That's the thing is like, I don't think they
can flip a middle finger to you.
They doing an invisible vampire sequence, I think.
Invisible giant vampire.
That's
invisible.
It's too close. I think that Distinguished Competition would balk at that because we already did it so very well in the Dark Legion house.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I think we can ignore the invisibility thing in part because Skinner's gone, and in part because
maybe they just do hide vampires.
Hide vampire because we're bringing those two characters back, so they have to countenance again this thing that they thought was over, this thing that they thought they had put to bed. But no, these serums still exist and they're still being deployed.
Is there a new power we could take from one of our new members that they mix in as well? They don't really seem very stealable.
Yeah.
No, and I don't know if we want to redux that so much as sort of make,
I got an idea.
Okay.
You know who has a power that's very interesting is Alan Pentamane, our main character.
Power of Resurrection.
Which is that when he is buried in Africa, maybe they find a way to trick the spell into creating like a farm of vampires with Pentamane's blood, grafts of skin. Like if we Are
you saying that Ellen Pentamane has like the key to like stem cells? That just all of his cells are stem cells?
Well, like something like,
and they just keep.
Okay, if we graft like a patch of skin from Pentamane and then kill this person and bury them in 5 different graves, do we get 5 different Alan Quartermains or something? And it turns our villain basically ends up being an African colonizer who sets up shop in Africa,
more turbo colonialism. We are making white guys.
Yes, we are manufacturing white villains.
What is
Africa.
colonialism if not showing up somewhere and making new white people there? So
you've also just done the Clone Wars thing where we are going to make a bunch of clones of Alan Quartermain, and the minute they show up, we're going to turn them into super soldiers. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to train them to be evil. And now we've made the North Africa campaign from World War II for 20 years in advance. Sure. Yeah. I honestly...
And we brought it all back to episode 2. Here we go. Full circle.
I fuck with it. I actually like that idea of stealing Pentamane's resurrection ability.
Because the other thing with Quartermain, as we kind of touched on in the first one, it doesn't really make sense for him to be the main character. Other than the fact that he is Sean Connery, there is no reason for Alan Quartermain to lead the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
M gets nothing from him being there, and he assembled the team.
Everyone else outranks him, whether it's Nemo with the ship, Mina with the bats, like...
a couple of them being immortal, yeah.
So I kind of like the idea of Pentamane being there, and the reason he's important is because he's the one being hunted.
Oh, so instead of being the leader of the team, this time he has to be protected because they know what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
with
maybe
him.
he's done this dance before. He got betrayed by M. He's gone and he's fought in the war and he's jaded. And they come to him and they're like, "Hey,
you got to come with us." And he's like, "I'm done. I'm not doing any more jobs." And they're like, "We're not asking you to do anything. You are going to get kidnapped. It's either by us, the good guys, or the bad guys."
Yeah,
this is not a question. We're not asking you to help us. You can if you want or whatever, but you got to come with us because they are trying to get your skin.
He, for plot reasons, becomes the central character, not necessarily because he's the leader of the team.
Here's the thing. I love that. And here's the other thing. You know what was written? Because I kept on racking my brain for like, surely something was written between 1899 and 1919 that we can bring in here. And you know what it is? It's The Jungle.
Oh,
it's The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, which is a work of nonfiction, but industrialization.
Yeah.
This is the problem. This is the threat. This is a threat in the first one. It's a threat in this one too. This is not like, oh, we're out in a farm making Alan Quartermains. We're making Alan Quartermains in a fucking factory. We are growing him in little pots. We are growing them in little vertical coffins.
Yeah.
We are just making dudes. We are just making white guys. And we are putting the serum in them the minute they come out. And now they are vampires who can go hide mode.
Here's what I think we do, because I don't like the idea.
Because that's bad news.
I don't like the idea of CGIing a million Rorys as an army.
You're talking about killing people, grafting Quartermain's skin on them, so they're not clones.
No. Yeah, I think what we actually do is maybe they think that like, okay, we're up against vampires with hide serum, right? Yeah. That is bad enough.
Somebody has this stuff.
What they do is once they get his DNA, they grow clones of Pentamain in these vats and are just carving skin off them and sewing them to like the arm of their vampire
They can just have a little like a sourdough starter of like Pentamain skin, basically.
And
we don't need clones.
Then,
we can just have the gnarly skin vat.
What happens then in our climax is they're up against this army of vampire hides, and every time they kill one, they just get right back up. Because they have Pentamain skin and they can't die in Africa. Now their power is, as long as they're in Africa, they can't die. They fall down, they get back up.
Right. And I like the limit being
and that brings us to our climax is Pentamain canceling the curse and dying. He has to sacrifice himself and die for real to end the witch doctor's curse so that the entire army dies. So it goes from him being like, I'm not going to join you guys, to being like, I have to die for this cause.
That's actually very good, because we have, instead of the like, oh no, we have to save the main character, he's our leader. It's like, we have to get this guy out of here and throw him into the fucking ocean from this plane so he can die. Mm-hmm. And the minute he dies, all of these clones resurrected by his skin will also crumple.
Yes.
Like the end of The Mummy 2.
Like the end of the Dark Legion House of Dracula.
No, but I mean, it's a very cool notion. And again, doing it where it's not that we have grown clones, that we have taken willing soldiers.
And we found a way to make them invincible.
We found a way to make them these sort of invincible super soldiers. That's really interesting.
Well, and also
in a sort of factory setting.
And the implication of it, because they can't die in Africa, it means whatever superpower we decide is doing this, all wars have to happen in Africa now. It is a continuation of that exporting of conflict to the third world, right? And so it's now, okay, well, we have this army of super soldiers that only functions here, so we will ravage this land.
Right, yeah.
For our means.
And again, if this is, I mean, it doesn't have to be a superpower. It can literally be just industrialization. We can just make this guy a robber baron, a nondescript sort of Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, JP Morgan, just guy who's just like, yeah, I'm going to, before World War I, everybody was beefing over how much of Africa they could colonize. It's me now. I'm it. I'm going to take over this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who's going to be extracting value from here, and the West is done. They can't expand anymore, and they're not going to be able to colonize shit, because America's over here guarding South America. The Monroe Doctrine is still in place, right? They are isolationists, and they are saying, if you come to the Western Hemisphere, we will blow you up. So that's not an option. And now it's just like Europeans can either fight each other and tear each other apart, but I'm going to hold down Africa. And Russia's this whole thing. They have the civil war happening, and now China and Japan is having some weird stuff going on there. Maybe you don't want to go over there right now. Maybe if you're like a Western country. So I do like the idea of sort of Europe sort of watching itself decline in 20 years in advance, not being able to do this extractive colonialism sooner than they were actually, I mean, not that it's not happening now, but that somebody threatening dominion over it.
And making it literal, the cost that industrialization had in places like Africa, where now they are going to just be gutted for resources for industrialization, and we just make that text.
By these literal white devils.
The way that the hero saves the day is gives up on Africa.
Yeah, gives up on his presence there.
Yes, and it's like, if Africa is what's giving me my power,
I don't have
West,
to do it. Yeah.
If you be like, the best thing for me to do right now is to divest myself from that and give it the continent back to the people on the continent.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And then, now of course we're working on a rolling alternate history that keeps doing other things. So it's still going to suck when we continue to fight all the wars there. But
it doesn't preclude, this could all happen in a pretty tight time frame, right? Sure. This is an obsession of mine. I like trying to cram things in as short a time as possible. This can be a weird month. Right, yes, this whole thing could take place because, that's one of the things about the first one that's a little weird is you're like, how long are they on this boat? What time is it? And I like the idea of it having actually a tighter TikTok. It could even be a week because I'm thinking about Barbara Tuchman, which is how I know almost anything about this period of time in my adult life, sort of absent of high school history. But I'm thinking about them. How are they going to find all of this out? How are they going to know that this is the plan? How are they going to know to go sort of kidnap Alan Quartermain? And it's got to be ciphers. It's got to be intelligence. It's got to be that they've picked up things over radio, but they haven't decoded all of it. They don't know what it all means. So they can have gotten, Watson can have a mostly decoded, somewhat decoded message, know that Quartermain is the object, but not necessarily know where it's going to come from or to what end. So we can have this sort of spy story in the beginning, which I like more. I like a little bit more of stealth element that the first one didn't have. It was just, let's take the big boat to next location, to borrow a term from the podcast Kill James Bond. So I like the idea of we have things have developed a bit more. We have intelligence, we've got radios, we've got code breaking, right? Some of these things are going to be really integral to the fighting in World War II, but we're still working it out. We don't quite know how to do it really well. And so we're, you're sort of, again, watching the industrialization and industrial warfare become refined in real time. This is a lot of historical themes to do on this Yuck 'em Up podcast. I'm so sorry for what I've done.
That is the nature of the league.
It's about time somebody came in and classed up the joint a little bit.
Class warfare, also Hulk vampires.
While we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon here, I want to establish a sort of a general arc so we can kind of get a picture of what this would look like. Obviously, I think actually now that this is sort of the arc, I think it actually makes the most sense if instead of the British government or whatever putting the league together, the British government is like, oh, our code breakers have detected this message. Watson, we need you to get a force to go kill Alan Pentamain. It's like, we just need to wipe him out now and bury him in the ocean. And the end. Yeah. And W goes kind of rogue and is like, maybe they fought in the war together or something, that's my brother, I can't just go kill him. And it's like, well, if you don't,
some stuff that we don't understand is going to, this whole thing, this might be a 2-year truce. We might be right back in the shit.
And so maybe W's like, we want a ticking clock, right? He's like, give me 3 days.
Yeah.
Give me 3 days. I'm going to put a team together.
We're going to bring him in. It's going to be fine.
We're going to bring him in and we're going to end this now, right? And so we get a ticking clock right off the bat. They kidnap Pentamain. Pentamain's like, fuck you, but again, kind of like the first one, people break in.
The danger comes to him, and then he has no choice.
Yep.
And then we can get a lot of globe trotting in, and then I think,
well, he has to get kidnapped back.
Well, that's the thing.
Listen, Alan, here's our atomic football. It's this man.
That's our end of Act 2, right? That the bad guys win and they take Alan Pentamain.
And they're able to build their army.
They start building the army, and then or maybe even the British government at this point, maybe here we unveil the nuke. And it's like, this thing's very experimental. We have obscure literary scientist, we have Dr. Victor Frankenstein, not him, but whoever, is working on this thing. It's very unstable.
We don't even need to do nukes. This is just missiles at this point. Just rockets. Rockets are threats enough.
And
they were using the Blitz. That was the late stage Blitz. It was bombers, but it was also rockets.
So then it's like, okay, you've got 12 hours before we flatten this part of Africa,
Right.
And so they have to go, but the soldiers have already been made, the skin grafts are happening, and then they have this climax.
Well, and Alan, first of all, after he gets kidnapped, being like, well, let me take this, with this force, let's go figure out what this is. I can't just hide in England. Let's go find out who was trying to do this and stop them.
Yeah.
And now it's, I can't let them flatten this part of Africa. This is the country club I hang out in when you motherfuckers aren't interrupting my life. And again, this is him returning back, feeling some kind of attachment to a place that is very much not him to feel attached to.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he makes the ultimate sacrifice of, if you truly love this place, you have to accept that it doesn't belong to you. And
also, we have to kill you in the Atlantic very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they fly him out to sea in Valkyrie's plane.
Yep.
She
should throw a fucking golden spear through him on his way down. It should look cool.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yes.
Something sick.
He should be T-posing on his way down.
Well, and someone on there's got to be a chase out there because they're trying to bring him back. They can't let him leave the continent.
Well, fuck a chase. They can turn into bats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's an enormous
a huge army, a whole fucking cloud of
bats.
A storm system of bats chasing after the plane would be a very cool.
You get
climax.
the vision of the golden sparkling plane with just millions of bats in a huge cloud.
That's a really dope third act. I like that.
Yeah, like chasing.
And then whatever they can land on the wings, right? Like, because you have so many, some of them can be landing, turning back into dudes and trying to punch a hole through the plane.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool climax.
And then you're cutting between that and the rest of the league on the ground, still fighting the army and just trying to like hold them back.
I also like the idea that before we wrap up, part of my complaint about the first one is, we're just throwing around these dudes. I don't know how many guys Nemo has. I don't know how many guys the Phantom has. We just have this sort of endless supply of henchmen. I like the idea of having a sense of like, there are 50 guys. Mm-hmm. There are 50 guys. There's, 25 in the factory for the big fight and 25 go after them. Right. And just having a sense of this is a finite, he doesn't need a jillion endless dudes because they're immortal. And the idea
but you
that
also get to know a couple of them and then you get to kill a couple of them off.
Right. That everyone feels meaningful.
Yes. I also like the idea of in our climax, we sort of climax Don Quixote's party or powers where they kind of like a bunch of Hyde vampires kind of corner him and he's like very cocky and like, confident. And they're like, there's 100 of us and there's one of you. And suddenly he's got this imaginary army fighting with him, something like that. Like
it's the ghosts from Lord of the Rings, but we do not see them.
Yeah, it's literally just he imagined, that like he had backup, and now they're like getting their asses kicked by.
Well, there's a degree to which
they can't
his
see.
Power is essentially faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is it's a very good power
faith
for someone to
also,
have who's fighting vampires.
Faith that is also delusion. And, and that the distinction does not matter.
And then in the other camp, you've got our 4 musketeers who are sticking together and just laying waste to the vampires because they're together, and
right. And if we were going to spend another half hour, we'd figure out what each of their individual character arcs are. Not each individual musketeer, but them as a character versus Mina as a character versus blah, 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 blah. But it's, yeah, I feel like this is a pretty cool sort of outline in the like sort of original pitch for this show. This is kind of probably where we would just leave it.
Yeah, this was what this show was
instead of
supposed
writing
to be.
70 pages of screenplay a month. Do you have a director in mind for this?
God, a horrible part of my brain instantly said Baz Luhrmann. Probably not.
It would be cool.
No, it's going to be co-directed by Baz Luhrmann and Michael Mann.
Jesus Christ.
And it will be fatal to everybody who watches it.
It will be The Ring.
Yeah, I like 3 directors who are like currently working as Baz Luhrmann, Michael Mann, and both Cronenberg.
Directed by Todd Field.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Todd Field. Yeah, my taste is bad, so don't ask me this question. We could do some more casting. I would also be willing, just if the audience has cool casting ideas. I mean, obviously, one of the Musketeers is going to be Michael B. Jordan. That man is not that ripped all the time to not be one of the Musketeers.
Yes, he should be swinging a sword in at least
Dylan, I feel like you would have some ideas for who the best director for this would be.
Honestly, Baz Luhrmann's a pretty good pick.
No, it's not. Don't say that.
We haven't ever seen him go off on a crazy action movie. There's an extent to which you were describing this scene with Brumhilde and throwing the spear through him. I'm like, who would love this?
Baz Luhrmann is our most Wagnerian director.
Yes. The most Wagnerian director is the person who's about to say, which is Zack Snyder.
Get the fuck out of here.
Actually, no. Zack Snyder might be the best.
Zack Snyder is the most Wagnerian director.
Here's the thing.
Right now.
The movie will suck, but he will love it.
It will.
No, but here's the thing. If the movie's gonna suck, then it's Boz. Because Boz will understand that this is camp.
Yeah.
Because some of the best parts of the first one are kind of camp.
If you want it to be...
I said gold airplane.
Okay.
It's Boz.
Zack Snyder's going to be like,
if you want
Don
it to
Quixote
be,
really is kind of a Christ-like figure.
if you want it to be sincere, I want this to be a Frank Frazetta painting energy.
What's the name of the guy who did The Witch and Barbarian?
Robert Eggers.
Him.
No, I'm sorry. The Witch, and not Barbarian, but the Northman is what you're thinking
Northman.
of.
Thank you. Sorry.
Robert Eggers would actually
movie.
maybe be a fun pick.
My serious answer is Robert Eggers. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the guy.
I mean, if he was going to do a franchise movie, this would be a fun one for him because he does the anachronistic stuff. He does like the period pieces.
And he'll do an intense amount of research in
That's the thing is he'll lose his mind in research about all these dudes.
He's very literary, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to lock that in. Robert Eggers is our pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's stick with that.
Sorry.
Robert Eggers, The League of Extraordinary
But I do want to put
Gentlemen
together like
2.
sort of a demo reel of the Snyder version just to kill Calvin, just as an act of torture.
Then it wouldn't be gay enough.
That's true.
Oh, at least not on purpose.
And it has to be a little gay.
Yes, it should be.
The Musketeers,
If
obviously.
we do Robert Eggers, though, that means Mina Harker is going to get recast as Anya Taylor-Joy.
Great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good.
Whatever. Let's put her in a red wig.
I can't believe
Tell her to go nuts.
We've come up with so many crazy ideas on this show, but the most cursed string of words is Robert Eggers, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 2.
Wouldn't your ass be in that seat, though?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's
Dalton,
fucked up.
I think it's time to lock it in.
Yes, it is time for Picture Lock. This is we're locking this in for the competition. This is the direct competition to the Dark Universe. It is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, League of Nations. Let's lock it in.
It's alive! In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God.
All right, so we want to sort of add a new ritual to the show. We've been really flattered by the amount of feedback we've been getting online recently from all of our listeners. So first of all, thank you to everybody who's been hitting us up on Instagram or Twitter.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's been really
we love
amazing.
getting your ideas and your comments and your feedback.
Yeah, and we want to start highlighting some of it on the show because we hear some cool stuff.
People are sending us some really good ideas. We don't have time to really do full episodes on everything.
Sure.
But we wanted to make sure we're shouting out people who are sending ideas and feedback.
I want to highlight a few relevant things that came up in the past couple of weeks since the last time we recorded. I want to give a shout out to Jason Rico from the literary podcast Shit We've Read, who independently from Calvin suggested doing something involving the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen on the show. So I thought that was worth mentioning.
That's just one of my burners. I'm sorry. I came here to confess that.
I want to give a big thank you to Allie, the co-host of a really funny podcast called Finding Monster Right that I've become obsessed with, for creating a wiki for our universe. We were delighted that anyone was enthusiastic enough to do this, and we would really like to encourage you listeners to help Allie in filling it out.
Yes, there is a page for breast.
The wish was granted. So it's at areyouafraidofthedarkuniverse.fandom.com, but there's a hyphen between each. It's r-u-afraid of the dark universe, etc. .fandom.com. Please help out in the work of putting that together because it also really help us to organize our shit.
And also, sorry about this episode.
Yes,
this
episode is not canon, but you can.
It's anti-canon.
Yes. So, but you can also email us your thoughts of anything you want, any longer things you want to say at darkuniversepod@gmail.com. And also, in case you would rather talk to us as we are in audio form, you can now call us and leave us a voicemail at a number. This is a U.S. number, 917-819-2574. That's 917-819-2574. I'll probably also put it in the show notes.
Yes.
That's our new Google voicemail box. And you can leave us a message there. And if it's, if it really slays, we'll put it on the show.
Yeah, we might play some of those back, given if we have time. So thank you, everybody, for your comments and everything. The next episode will be my pitch for Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I am super excited about. I put my whole ass into this one, and
we hope you've been enjoying these really light and fluffy episodes because the only thing I know about your creature pitch is that it's a bummer.
It's gonna be dark, but I think it's a lot of fun. It is also it's our first new character of Phase 2 that we're giving a solo movie to. It's a complete reinvention of the creature mythos. I'm super excited about it. So please come back here in 2 weeks if you would like some homework to prepare for that episode. You can of course watch the original Creature from the Black Lagoon, from which I took a lot of inspiration. I would also recommend watching Tigers Are Not Afraid by Issa Lopez. I believe it's streaming on Shudder right now, which does have a week-long free trial, and it's a terrific movie.
Also, if you're a fan of this podcast, you should probably have a Shudder subscription.
Yeah, probably. Issa Lopez is going to be directing my adaptation of Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I feel like I had... Oh, and why the hell not? Watch The Shape of Water. It's sort of our most modern retelling of that narrative, and mine's going to be, I want to say nothing like it, but who knows? Maybe you'll draw some parallels.
Differently horny, from what I've last heard.
Well, it's going to be something. Come back here in 2 weeks for The Creature.
Right. And Calvin, is there anything that you would like to talk about to our audience?
Yes.
In our final moments.
Hey, if you like
your
class...
final moments on Earth.
Yes.
Final moments on Earth. If you like class warfare, check out my novel, Several People Are Typing. That's what it's called. It's written entirely in Slack chats. It's better than that makes it sound. You can buy it wherever there are books. You can buy an audiobook. There's a full cast recording. So
it's pretty neat.
If you're really into podcasts and that kind of thing, full ass cast.
Yeah, if you like what we did with the Dark Legion House of Dracula.
And you want to hear it done by professionals.
Professionals was something that was written with more than one draft. And it's actually a very great piece of literature. Listen to that audiobook or read it yourself.
Yeah, it's a quick read. And that's it. Hopefully I've earned myself a way to come back on here again and to do more of these.
Definitely not.
And great. Well, then never mind. But hopefully some more books in the near future.
Yes, Calvin will be back, I'm sure, pitching us future installments in the new League franchise.
If we can get the studio to pay to get me from Queens to Brooklyn again.
That's true, yeah.
It's a hefty fee.
We'll have to see how many people listen to this episode. If enough people do, then they can afford the helicopter next time.
Golden airplane only now.
Thank you so much, Calvin, for being here. We will see you all in 2 weeks for Creature from the Black Lagoon. And until then,
Stay afraid of the dark universe.
bye-bye.